The chocolate melted between Maya's tiny fingers as she looked up at me with those innocent 6-year-old eyes that seemed to see everything adults tried to hide. We were sitting on the front porch swing, the one I'd built when Sarah and I first bought this house 15 years ago, back when we still believed in forever. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. "Grandpa Ross, why does Uncle Kevin visit when you leave and Grandma laughs different?" she asked again, her voice carrying that particular tone children use when they know something is important, but don't understand why. I handed her another piece of chocolate, my hands trembling slightly. "What do you mean, sweetheart? Different how?" Maya wiped her chocolate-covered fingers on her pink dress, the one Sarah had bought her last week. She sounds happy, but not real happy. Like when Mommy pretends she likes Daddy's cooking but makes faces behind his back. The comparison hit me harder than it should have. My granddaughter, barely old enough for first grade, had noticed something I'd been blind to for God knows how long. "When does Uncle Kevin visit, Maya?" "When you go to work. And sometimes when you go to the store. Grandma always tells me not to mention it because it's a surprise." She paused, studying my face with the intensity only children possess. "But you look sad about surprises, Grandpa. Don't you like them?" I forced a smile, the kind of smile that felt like glass breaking in my chest. "I love surprises, baby girl. Tell me more about Uncle Kevin's visits." Maya swung her legs back and forth, her small feet not quite reaching the porch floor. "He brings flowers sometimes, and they go upstairs to talk about grown-up things. Grandma always sends me to watch TV really loud." She looked at me with sudden concern. "Are you okay, Grandpa? Your face looks funny." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "Kevin, my brother-in-law, Sarah's younger brother who'd been staying with us for the past 6 months after his divorce, the one I'd welcomed into my home because he had nowhere else to go. The man I'd trusted, fed, given shelter to while he got back on his feet." "I'm fine, sweetheart," I managed, though my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. "Hey, you know what? I think I might take a little trip tomorrow. Would you like that? Just you and Grandma for the day?" Maya's face lit up with genuine excitement. "Really? Where are you going?" "Oh, just some boring work stuff. But I'll bring you back something special." I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo and chocolate. "You're my special girl, Maya. Don't ever forget that." The next morning, I made a big show of packing my overnight bag while Sarah watched from the kitchen, sipping her coffee with that satisfied smile I'd interpreted as contentment for our entire marriage. She was still in her robe, the blue silk one I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. "Drive carefully," she said, kissing my cheek with lips that felt cold against my skin. "Maya and I will probably just stay in today. Maybe watch some movies." "Sounds perfect," I replied, shouldering my bag. "I'll call when I get to the hotel." But instead of driving to the interstate, I pulled into the parking lot of Murphy's Diner 3 blocks away and waited. 3 hours felt like 3 years as I sat there, drinking coffee that tasted like ashes and watching the clock on the dashboard. At 11:30 I drove home. Kevin's blue Honda was parked in my driveway. I sat in my truck for a long moment, staring at that car like it was a snake coiled on my doorstep. Part of me wanted to drive away, to pretend I'd never seen it, to go back to the comfortable lie I'd been living. But Maya's innocent question echoed in my mind. "Why does Uncle Kevin visit when you leave?" The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside my own house feeling like an intruder, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they'd hear it upstairs. Maya was in the living room, exactly where Sarah had positioned her, watching cartoons with the volume turned up high enough to wake the dead. She saw me and started to smile, then caught herself glancing nervously toward the staircase. "Grandpa, you came back?" "I forgot something, baby," I whispered, kneeling down to her level. "Is Uncle Kevin here?" Maya nodded, her eyes wide with the kind of fear children feel when they know they're in the middle of something they don't understand. "They're upstairs talking. Grandma said not to bother them." I could hear them now, voices coming from my bedroom, from the bed I'd shared with Sarah for 15 years. "Not talking. Not anymore." The sounds that drifted down the stairs made my stomach turn and my hands clench into fists. "Maya," I said softly, "why don't you go out to the backyard and play on your swing set? I need to talk to Grandma and Uncle Kevin about something." She hesitated, sensing the tension radiating from me like heat from a furnace. "Are you mad, Grandpa?" "Not at you, sweetheart, never at you." I kissed her forehead, and she ran toward the back door, her small feet pattering across the hardwood floors I'd refinished myself last summer. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling like I was walking toward my own execution. The sounds grew clearer, more unmistakable. Sarah's voice, breathless and urgent in a way it hadn't been with me in years. Kevin's deeper tones, saying things I'd never heard him say to anyone. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the gap I could see them on the bed Sarah and I had picked out together. The bed where we'd planned our future, where we'd talked about growing old together. Sarah was beneath him, her hands tangled in his hair, her face flushed with passion I'd forgotten she was capable of. I stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds, watching my marriage die in real time. Not just dying, realizing it had been dead for longer than I'd understood, and I'd been living with a corpse, talking to it, making love to it, planning a future with it. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the joy on Sarah's face, the genuine happiness I hadn't seen from her in years. She was alive in a way she never was with me anymore, electric and passionate and completely present. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a terrible mistake. This was where she wanted to be. I backed away from the door, my legs unsteady, and made my way downstairs. Maya was still in the backyard, pushing herself on the swing set, her blonde hair catching the afternoon sunlight. She looked so small, so innocent, so unaware that her world was about to shatter along with mine. I left the house as quietly as I'd entered it, but this time I didn't go to Murphy's Diner. I drove to the park where Maya and I fed the ducks on Sunday afternoons, sat on a bench and tried to process what I'd just witnessed. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely light a cigarette, a habit I'd supposedly quit 5 years ago but kept emergency packs hidden in my glove compartment. The nicotine didn't calm me. Nothing could calm the storm raging in my chest, the mixture of rage and humiliation and something worse, the terrible clarity that everything I'd believed about my life was a lie. How long had this been going on? How many times had Kevin visited while I was at work? How many family gatherings had I sat through, making small talk with the man who was sleeping with my wife? I thought about last Christmas, when Kevin had helped Sarah set the table while I carved the turkey. They'd laughed together about some inside joke I wasn't part of, and I'd felt a stab of, what? Jealousy. No, I'd told myself then. Just sibling affection, family closeness. God, I'd been such a fool. When I finally returned home that evening, I acted like nothing had happened. Sarah greeted me with the same casual kiss on the cheek, asked about my business trip with the same mild interest she always showed. Kevin emerged from the guest room shortly after I arrived, stretching and yawning like he'd been napping. "Hey Ross," he said, clapping me on the shoulder with the same friendly familiarity he'd shown for months. "How was the road?" "Long," I replied, studying his face for any sign of guilt or discomfort. There was none. He looked relaxed, satisfied, completely at ease in my home. "Thanks for keeping Sarah and Maya company." "No problem at all. Family takes care of family, right?" The irony of those words hit me like a physical blow, but I managed to nod and smile. Right. Family. Over the next 2 weeks, I began to see everything differently. The way Sarah's mood improved on days when Kevin was around, how she'd started dressing up more, wearing perfume to go grocery shopping, buying new lingerie I never saw her wear, the meaningful glances between them at dinner, the way they found excuses to touch each other in passing. Most devastating of all was Maya's casual acceptance of the situation. When I probed gently, I discovered this had been going on for months. "Uncle Kevin visits lots," she told me one evening as I tucked her into bed. "But Grandma says it's our secret, because Uncle Kevin gets sad when people talk about his visits." "What kind of sad?" I asked, my heart breaking for this little girl who'd been taught to keep secrets that weren't hers to keep. "Crying sad. Grandma says Uncle Kevin cries when people know he visits because he's embarrassed about being divorced." Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. "But I don't think he's sad, Grandpa. He smiles a lot when he's here." I had to excuse myself to the bathroom to compose myself. Maya had been unwittingly protecting them, believing she was keeping Kevin's feelings safe when really she was covering up their affair. They'd used her innocence as a shield for their betrayal. The pattern became clear once I knew what to look for. Tuesdays and Thursdays when I worked late at the construction site, Saturday mornings when I went to the hardware store, Sunday afternoons when I visited my elderly father at the nursing home. Kevin's visits coincided perfectly with my absences, orchestrated with military precision. I started documenting everything, times, dates, circumstances. I bought a small digital recorder and began carrying it everywhere, though I wasn't sure what I planned to do with it. The evidence was mounting, but evidence of what exactly? That my wife was cheating on me? That my brother-in-law was a snake? I already knew both those things. What I discovered next was worse than the affair itself. I came home early from work one Thursday, claiming a headache, and found Sarah on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't see me come in through the back door, and her voice carried clearly through the screen. "He's so clueless, Kevin. Sometimes I wonder how he functions in the real world." She laughed, a sound that used to make me happy and now made me sick. 49 years old and still thinks people are basically good. It's almost sweet how naive he is. "Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Kevin's voice came through the speakerphone, tinny but clear. "Ross? God, no. The man still believes in Santa Claus. He sees what he wants to see, hears what he wants to hear. We could probably do it on the kitchen table, and he'd convince himself we were playing checkers." Their laughter felt like acid in my veins. I pressed record on the device in my pocket. "Still," Kevin continued, "we should be careful. Maya almost said something last week when I was leaving. Kids notice things. Maya's fine. I've explained to her that Uncle Kevin gets his feelings hurt if people know he visits because he's embarrassed about the divorce. She thinks she's protecting your feelings by keeping it secret." Sarah's tone was matter-of-fact, businesslike. Children are surprisingly easy to manipulate when you frame things properly. The casual cruelty of that statement hit me harder than anything else. They weren't just betraying me, they were using Maya's natural empathy against her, teaching her to lie, to keep secrets, to protect the very people who were destroying her family. "What about long-term?" Kevin asked. "We can't keep this up forever." "Why not? Ross isn't going anywhere. He's got nowhere to go, no one else who'd put up with him. His whole identity is wrapped up in being the good husband, the provider, the family man. Even if he found out, he'd probably forgive me and beg me to stay. And if he didn't?" Sarah's pause stretched long enough that I held my breath. "Then we'd figure something out. This house is half mine, Kevin. So is everything else he's worked for. Ross thinks love conquers all, but money talks louder than love ever did." I stopped recording and slipped back outside, my legs barely supporting me. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, listening to that conversation over and over, until every word was burned into my memory. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning a future together, one that included my house, my money, my life's work. And they were so confident in my weakness, so certain of my predictable reaction, that they discussed it like a business transaction. The worst part was knowing they were probably right. The old Ross, the Ross from 3 weeks ago, would have confronted Sarah with tears in his eyes and forgiveness on his lips. He would have begged her to end it, promised to be a better husband, asked what he could do to win her back. But that Ross had died the moment I heard my granddaughter ask why Uncle Kevin's visits made Grandma laugh different. What emerged from his ashes was someone I'd never been before. Someone who understood that sometimes love wasn't enough, that sometimes being good meant being smart, and that sometimes the people you trust most are the ones planning your destruction. The confrontation came on a rainy Thursday evening in October. I'd been gathering evidence for 3 weeks, documenting their affair with the methodical precision I usually reserved for construction blueprints. I had recordings, photographs, timestamps, and enough documentation to paint a clear picture of what had been happening under my own roof. Sarah was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I walked in, my clothes still damp from the autumn rain. She looked up from the stove with that practiced smile I now recognized as performance art, the kind of expression she'd perfected over months of deception. "You're home early," she said, stirring something that smelled like the beef stew she used to make when we were first married. "Dinner won't be ready for another hour. We need to talk, Sarah." Something in my tone made her pause, the wooden spoon suspended halfway to her mouth for tasting. "About what?" "About Kevin. About the visits. About everything you think I don't know." The spoon clattered against the pot as she set it down. For just a moment her mask slipped, and I saw fear flash across her face before she composed herself. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." I pulled out the digital recorder and set it on the kitchen counter between us. "You know exactly what I mean." Sarah stared at the device like it was a loaded weapon. "Ross, what is that?" "Tuesday afternoon, 3:15 p.m. You were on the phone with Kevin discussing how clueless I am, how easy I am to manipulate, How you've been using Maya to cover your tracks. I pressed play, and her own voice filled the kitchen. Ross? God, no. The man still believes in Santa Claus. The color drained from her face as she listened to herself mocking our marriage, discussing me like I was an inconvenient piece of furniture. When Kevin's voice joined the conversation, talking about keeping up the charade, Sarah reached for the recorder. Don't, I said quietly, placing my hand over the device. Let it play. We stood there in our kitchen, surrounded by the domestic comfort we'd built together over 15 years, listening to the woman I'd loved plan my emotional and financial destruction. When Sarah's recorded voice discussed manipulating Maya, something shifted in her expression from fear to calculation. How long have you known? She asked when the recording ended. Does it matter? It matters to me. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, already shifting into defensive mode. How long, Ross? 3 weeks. Since Maya asked me why Uncle Kevin visits when I leave and why you laugh different when he's here. Sarah's face hardened at the mention of our granddaughter. Maya doesn't know anything. Maya knows everything, Sarah. She just doesn't understand what it means yet, but she will. Children always figure it out eventually. You recorded private conversations in my own home, our home, and yes, I did, just like you and Kevin have been conducting private meetings in our bedroom. I kept my voice level, though inside I was screaming. How long has this been going on? Sarah straightened, and suddenly the woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. 6 months. Maybe 7. Does the timeline really matter now? 6 months. I repeated the words, trying to process them. Since March, since Kevin moved in after his divorce. Since I remembered what it felt like to be desired instead of taken for granted. The accusation hit like a slap. Taken for granted? Sarah, I've spent 15 years building a life for us. This house, the business, everything we have. Everything you have, she corrected sharply. Everything you decided we needed without asking what I wanted. This house in the suburbs, the quiet dinners, the predictable routine. Do you know what it's like being married to someone who thinks happiness is a steady paycheck and a clean house? I stared at her, seeing a stranger wearing my wife's face. What did you want, Sarah? You never said you were unhappy. You never said anything. I tried. God, Ross. I tried for years to get you to see me as something other than the dutiful wife. When was the last time we talked about anything that mattered? When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my goals, what I wanted from life? I thought you were happy. You seemed happy. I seemed grateful. There's a difference. Sarah moved to the window, looking out at the rain. Kevin sees me as a woman, not just a wife. He listens when I talk. He makes me feel alive instead of just useful. The words cut deep because there was truth in them. When had I stopped seeing Sarah as a person and started seeing her as a role? When had our conversations become logistics instead of connection? So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. I decided to grab some happiness while I still could. She turned back to face me, her chin raised defiantly. I'm 46 years old, Ross. This might be my last chance to feel like a woman instead of a housekeeper. And Kevin? What's his excuse? Kevin's excuse is that he's a man who appreciates what he has instead of taking it for granted. The kitchen door opened, and Maya walked in, drawn by the tension in our voices. She looked between us with the instinctive fear children feel when their safe world starts cracking. Grandpa? Grandma? Why are you talking loud? Sarah immediately softened, kneeling down to Maya's level. We're just having a grown-up discussion, sweetheart. Why don't you go watch TV? I don't want to watch TV. I want you to stop being mad. I looked at this 6-year-old girl who'd innocently exposed the lie my life had become, and something protective and fierce rose in my chest. Maya, baby, sometimes grown-ups have problems that need to be solved. But no matter what happens, Grandpa loves you very much. Are you getting divorced like Mommy and Daddy did? The question hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's eyes met mine across our granddaughter's head, and I saw something that might have been regret flicker there. We don't know yet, sweetheart, I said honestly. But whatever happens, it's not your fault, and both Grandma and Grandpa will always love you. Maya nodded solemnly, then hugged my legs before running back to the living room. When she was gone, Sarah and I faced each other again, the weight of our shattered marriage heavy between us. So what now? Sarah asked. You've got your recordings, your evidence. What do you plan to do with them? I don't know yet. I suppose you want me to end it with Kevin. Beg for forgiveness. Promise to be a better wife. Do you want to end it? She was quiet for a long moment, and I found myself hoping against hope that she'd say yes, that we could find a way to rebuild what we'd lost. No, she said finally. I don't want to end it. I want out of this marriage, Ross. I want a divorce. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting them. Just like that, 15 years and you want out? 15 years of what? Going through the motions? Playing house? I've been dying slowly in this marriage for years, Ross. Kevin didn't create my unhappiness. He just showed me there was another way to live. And the house? Our life together? Maya? The house will be sold and we'll split the proceeds. As for Maya, Sarah's expression hardened again. She's not our responsibility. She has parents. She's been living with us for 8 months, Sarah. Since Tom and Jennifer started having problems, she thinks of this as her home. Then maybe it's time she learned that homes can change. Children are resilient. I stared at my wife, wondering when she'd become someone capable of such casual cruelty. You're willing to uproot Maya's life for Kevin? I'm willing to finally live my own life instead of sacrificing it for everyone else's expectations. The front door opened, and Kevin's voice called out cheerfully, "Hello, family. Hope you don't mind me dropping by." He appeared in the kitchen doorway, taking in the scene with growing alarm. The tension between Sarah and me was palpable, and the recorder still sat on the counter like evidence at a crime scene. "Am I interrupting something?" he asked, though his eyes had already found the device and his face was paling. "Ross knows," Sarah said simply. Kevin's reaction was everything I'd expected, and worse. No shame, no apology, just calculation. How much does he know? All of it. He's been recording our conversations. Kevin's eyes flashed with anger, not guilt. "That's illegal, Ross. Recording people without consent in their own home." "My home," I corrected. "And actually, it's perfectly legal to record conversations in your own home when you have reason to believe crimes are being committed." "What crimes?" Kevin stepped closer, his earlier friendliness replaced by something darker. "Having an affair isn't a crime. Alienation of affection is grounds for a civil lawsuit. So is intentional infliction of emotional distress, and corrupting a minor by teaching her to lie and keep secrets." I let the implications hang in the air. Kevin and Sarah exchanged a look I couldn't read, but it felt like conspiracy. "What do you want, Ross?" Kevin asked. "I want you out of my house, tonight. And if I refuse, then I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. Your choice." Kevin left that night, but not before making it clear this wasn't over. The look he gave me as he packed his belongings was pure hatred, and the whispered conversation he had with Sarah in the hallway told me they were already planning their next move. What I didn't expect was how quickly that move would come. The next morning, I woke to find Sarah on the phone with someone, her voice low and urgent. When she saw me, she quickly ended the call, but not before I heard her say, "Yes, I understand. We'll be there this afternoon." "Who was that?" I asked, pouring myself coffee with hands that still shook slightly. "My lawyer," she said without bothering to lie. "I'm filing for divorce, Ross. Today." Maya was at the kitchen table, methodically eating cereal and pretending not to listen to our conversation, but I could see the tension in her small shoulders. She'd been quieter since last night, more withdrawn, sensing that her safe world was crumbling, even if she couldn't articulate why. "That's your right," I said carefully. "But we need to talk about Maya, about where she'll live during all this. Maya will come with me, of course. I'm her primary caregiver." "Since when?" "I'm the one who picks her up from school, helps with homework, reads bedtime stories. You barely interact with her unless it's to send her away so you can have privacy with Kevin." Sarah's eyes flashed dangerously. "I'm her grandmother, Ross. The courts will side with family." "I'm family too. And I'm the one who's actually been taking care of her." "Maya, sweetheart," Sarah said suddenly, her voice syrupy sweet, "why don't you go get dressed? We might be going on a little adventure today." Maya looked between us with those wise 6-year-old eyes that saw too much. What kind of adventure? Just some errands with Grandma, nothing exciting. But Maya didn't move. Instead, she looked directly at me. "Grandpa Ross, are you coming too?" The question hung in the air and I saw Sarah's jaw tighten. "No, baby. Grandpa has to work today." "I don't want to go without Grandpa," Maya said quietly. "Sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do," Sarah replied, her patience already wearing thin. "Now go get dressed." Maya slid off her chair and came to me instead, wrapping her small arms around my waist. "I want to stay with you, Grandpa." Sarah's mask slipped completely. Maya, you're coming with me, and that's final. Stop being difficult. The harshness in her voice made Maya flinch, and something protective and fierce roared to life in my chest. I knelt down to Maya's level, speaking gently. Maya, do you remember what we talked about yesterday? About how sometimes grown-ups have problems they need to solve? She nodded, her eyes wide and serious. Well, Grandma and I are working on solving our problems. But no matter what happens, you're safe and you're loved, and nobody's going to make you do anything that scares you. Okay. Okay, Grandpa. Now, why don't you go get dressed, and then maybe we can figure out what kind of day we're going to have. After Maya left the room, Sarah rounded on me. Don't you dare undermine my authority with her. I'm not undermining anything. I'm protecting a scared little girl from being used as a pawn in our marriage problems. She's not a pawn. She's my granddaughter and she belongs with me. Since when do you care about Maya belonging anywhere? Yesterday you were ready to ship her back to her parents because she was inconvenient. Sarah's face flushed with anger. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. You said she's not our responsibility, that children are resilient, that maybe it's time she learned homes can change. Those were your exact words. I was upset. People say things they don't mean when they're upset. Do they? Or do they say things they really think but usually keep hidden? Before Sarah could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my son Tom's number, and my stomach dropped. Maya's father never called this early, unless something was wrong. Dad? Tom's voice sounded strained when I answered. Is Maya okay? Jennifer got a weird call this morning from Sarah. Something about needing to discuss Maya's living arrangements immediately. I glanced at Sarah, who was listening intently. Maya's fine, son. She's upstairs getting dressed. What's this about living arrangements? Is something wrong with you and Sarah? The question I'd been dreading. Tom and Jennifer were going through their own marital problems, which was why Maya had been staying with us for the past 8 months. They were both working overtime to pay for counseling and trying to rebuild their relationship. The last thing they needed was additional stress about Maya's care. Your mother and I are having some problems, Tom. We're probably going to separate. Silence on the other end of the line, then, Jesus, Dad, are you serious? Unfortunately, yes. And Sarah wants Maya to what? Come live with her, separately from you. I think that's what she's suggesting, yes. That's not happening, Tom said firmly. Dad, I don't know what's going on between you two, but Maya has been happy and stable living with you. Jennifer and I aren't ready to take her back full-time yet, and we're not letting her get bounced around between angry relatives. Relief flooded through me. What are you saying, Tom? I'm saying Maya stays with you. If Sarah has a problem with that, she can take it up with me and Jennifer. We'll make it legal if we have to. Sarah had been listening to my side of the conversation, and her face was growing darker by the moment. When I hung up, she immediately demanded, What did he say? He said Maya stays with me. He can't make that decision unilaterally. I have rights. You have the right to visit. You don't have the right to uproot a child's life because your marriage is falling apart. Our marriage, she corrected sharply, and Maya is my granddaughter too. Then start acting like a grandmother instead of acting like someone who sees her as leverage in a divorce. The argument might have escalated further, but Maya appeared in the doorway, dressed in her favorite purple dress and clutching the stuffed elephant I'd won for her at the county fair last summer. I'm ready, she announced, then hesitated, but I still don't want to go anywhere without Grandpa. Sarah forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. Maya, sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups need to have private conversations. You can't always be with Grandpa. Why not? Maya's question was simple and direct, the way children's questions always are. Because that's just how things work. But I like how things work now. I like living here with both of you. Can't we keep living here together? The innocence in her voice broke my heart. Maya didn't understand that the life she'd found stability in was crumbling, that the adults she trusted were fighting over her like she was property to be divided. Maya, I said gently, come here for a minute. She came to me and I lifted her onto my lap, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo and feeling the solid warmth of her small body against my chest. You know how sometimes puzzles get mixed up and all the pieces don't fit together the way they used to? She nodded. Well, sometimes that happens with families too. The grown-ups have to figure out new ways to arrange the pieces so everyone can be happy and safe. Are you and Grandma's pieces not fitting together anymore? No, sweetheart, they're not. Maya was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the seriousness children bring to important revelations. But my piece still fits with your piece, right, Grandpa? The simplicity of her metaphor made my throat tight. Yes, baby, your piece fits perfectly with mine. Good, she said, settling more comfortably against my chest. I don't want my piece to go anywhere else. Sarah watched this exchange with an expression I couldn't read. For a moment I thought I saw regret there, maybe even longing. But then her phone buzzed with a text message, and when she read it, her face hardened again. I have to go, she said abruptly. I'm meeting with my lawyer at 10. What about Maya? Maya will be fine with you for today. But Ross, this isn't over. I'm not giving up my rights to my granddaughter just because you recorded some private conversations. After she left, Maya and I sat in the quiet kitchen, listening to the rain against the windows. Finally, she looked up at me with those serious brown eyes. Grandpa, did I do something wrong when I told you about Uncle Kevin? The question pierced my heart. Oh, sweetheart, no. You didn't do anything wrong. You were just being honest, and honesty is always the right thing. But now everyone's mad and sad. Sometimes when people tell the truth, it makes other people angry because they were trying to keep secrets. But that doesn't mean telling the truth was wrong. Maya considered this carefully. So Uncle Kevin and Grandma were keeping secrets? Yes, they were. And secrets make people sad. Some secrets do. The kind of secrets that hurt other people. She was quiet for a long moment, then said, I don't like secrets anymore, Grandpa. They make my tummy feel bad. That's because you have a good heart, Maya. Good hearts don't like it when people they love are being hurt. Do you have a good heart too? I try to, sweetheart. I try to. 3 days later, Sarah returned with a family court mediator and Kevin in tow. I was helping Maya with her homework at the kitchen table when they walked in without knocking, their faces set with the kind of determination that comes from believing you hold all the winning cards. Ross, Sarah announced, we need to talk, all of us. The mediator was a thin woman in her 50s with graying hair and the weary expression of someone who'd seen too many families tear themselves apart. She introduced herself as Linda Patterson and explained that Sarah had requested emergency mediation regarding Maya's custody arrangements. Mr. Henderson, she said, settling into a chair across from me while Maya colored nervously at my side. Mrs. Henderson has expressed concerns about the current living situation being unstable for the minor child. What kind of concerns? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I knew where this was headed. Sarah leaned forward, her voice taking on the reasonable tone she used when she wanted to sound like the rational adult in the room. Ross has been exhibiting increasingly erratic behavior, recording private conversations, making accusations, creating a hostile environment for Maya. That's interesting, I said calmly, considering you and Kevin have been having an affair for 7 months and using Maya to cover your tracks. The mediator's eyebrows rose slightly. These are serious allegations on both sides. Do you have documentation to support your claims, Mr. Henderson? I pulled out the digital recorder I'd been carrying everywhere and set it on the table. Several hours worth. Kevin shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Those recordings were made without consent. They're not admissible in court. Actually, I said, meeting his eyes steadily, recordings made in your own home are perfectly legal when you have reasonable suspicion of ongoing deception. I checked with a lawyer yesterday. Sarah's confident expression flickered for just a moment before she regrouped. Even if that's true, playing recordings of private conversations in front of Maya is hardly appropriate behavior for a guardian. Maya, I said gently, why don't you take your coloring books up to your room for a little while? The grown-ups need to have a boring conversation. Maya looked between the adults gathered around her kitchen table, her 6-year-old instincts clearly telling her something important was happening. Will you come get me when you're done, Grandpa? Of course, sweetheart. After Maya left, I turned to the mediator. Before we continue, I think you should hear what kind of private conversation we're discussing. I pressed play on the recorder, and Sarah's voice filled the kitchen. Maya's fine. I've explained to her that Uncle Kevin gets his feelings hurt if people know he visits because he's embarrassed about the divorce. She thinks she's protecting your feelings by keeping it secret. Children are surprisingly easy to manipulate when you frame things properly. The mediator's expression grew more serious as she listened to Sarah and Kevin discussing how to use Maya's natural empathy against her, how to manipulate a 6-year-old into becoming an unwitting accomplice to their deception. When Kevin's voice added, "What about long term? We can't keep this up forever," and Sarah replied with casual cruelty about Maya being easy to manipulate. Linda Patterson's professional neutrality cracked slightly. "Mrs. Henderson," she said carefully when the recording ended, "are you acknowledging that you coached the child to lie about Mr. Foster's visits?" "I was protecting Maya from unnecessary confusion about adult relationships," Sarah replied, but her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. "By teaching her to keep secrets and lie to her grandfather? By sparing her the details of complicated family dynamics? The family dynamics being your extramarital affair with Mr. Foster, conducted in the home where Maya lives?" Sarah's face flushed. "My personal relationships are none of your business. They become my business when they involve manipulating a minor child and creating an unstable home environment." Linda turned to me. "Mr. Henderson, do you have other documentation?" I played another recording, this one from 2 weeks ago when Sarah and Kevin discussed their long-term plans. "This house is half mine, Kevin. So is everything else he's worked for. Ross thinks love conquers all, but money talks louder than love ever did." As Kevin's voice responded with details about timing the divorce for maximum financial advantage, I watched the mediator's expression grow increasingly disapproving. "And there's this," I said, playing the recording from Thursday night when Sarah had said, "Maya will come with me, of course. I'm her primary caregiver," followed minutes later by her admission that Maya wasn't our responsibility, and that children are resilient. The mediator looked between Sarah and Kevin with the kind of professional distaste usually reserved for particularly difficult cases. "Mrs. Henderson, your recorded statements suggest you view the child as both an asset to be claimed and a burden to be managed. Can you explain this contradiction?" "Those statements were taken out of context," Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. "What context would make it appropriate to manipulate a 6-year-old into lying to protect your affair?" Before Sarah could answer, Kevin leaned forward aggressively. "Look, this is all very interesting, but the fact remains that Ross has been secretly recording people in their own home. That shows paranoid, controlling behavior that's not healthy for a child." "Mr. Foster," Linda said coolly, "you're not a party to this mediation. You have no legal standing regarding Maya's custody arrangements. I'm going to be Sarah's husband. That gives me standing." The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't quite exploded yet. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise and alarm. Clearly this wasn't something they'd discussed, at least not in terms of public announcements. "Is that true, Mrs. Henderson? Are you planning to remarry immediately upon divorce?" Sarah stammered, clearly thrown off balance by Kevin's premature revelation. We haven't made any definite plans, but you have discussed marriage. We've discussed possibilities for the future, yes." Linda made notes on her legal pad, her pen scratching loudly in the suddenly quiet kitchen. "Mr. Henderson, how does Maya respond to Mr. Foster?" I thought about the recordings I hadn't played yet, the ones where Maya's voice could be heard in the background, small and uncertain, asking when Uncle Kevin would leave, why she had to watch TV so loud, why she couldn't play upstairs when he visited. Maya tolerates Kevin because she's been taught to keep quiet about his presence, but she's never been comfortable with him. "That's not true," Sarah interjected. "Maya likes Kevin." "Does she? Maya, could you come down here for a moment, please?" Maya appeared in the doorway almost instantly, confirming my suspicion that she'd been listening from the stairs. "Yes, Grandpa?" "Maya, you remember Uncle Kevin, right?" She nodded, moving closer to my chair and farther from where Kevin sat. "How do you feel when Uncle Kevin visits?" Maya glanced around the room at all the adult faces watching her, then looked down at her hands. "I feel quiet." "What does quiet mean, sweetheart?" "Like I have to be very still and not make noise and not ask questions and just watch TV with the sound up high." Linda Patterson was writing rapidly now. "Maya, when Uncle Kevin visits, where does he usually go?" "Upstairs with Grandma, to talk about grown-up things, but they're not really talking." She looked up at me with those honest eyes. "Talking doesn't sound like that, does it, Grandpa?" Kevin's face had gone white, and Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Maya," Linda said gently, "how do you feel about Uncle Kevin maybe living here all the time?" Maya's reaction was immediate and visceral. She moved behind my chair, her small hands gripping my shoulders. "I don't want that. I want him to go back to his own house." "Why, sweetheart?" "Because when he's here, Grandma acts different. And I have to keep secrets, and Grandpa looks sad." Her voice got smaller. "I don't like secrets anymore. They make my tummy hurt. The mediator closed her notepad and looked directly at Sarah. Mrs. Henderson, based on what I've heard today, I cannot recommend that Maya's current living arrangement be disrupted. The child is clearly bonded with Mr. Henderson, comfortable in this environment, and has been negatively impacted by the deception surrounding Mr. Foster's presence. Sarah's face crumpled. You can't do this. She's my granddaughter. She's a 6-year-old child who needs stability and honesty, neither of which your proposed arrangement would provide. Linda stood up, her decision clearly made. My recommendation to the court will be that Maya remain in Mr. Henderson's primary custody, with supervised visitation rights for you, Mrs. Henderson, contingent on counseling regarding appropriate boundaries with minor children. This is ridiculous, Kevin exploded. The man is vindictive and controlling. He's using the kid to get revenge on Sarah. Mr. Foster, Linda said with ice in her voice, a vindictive and controlling person doesn't spend 3 weeks carefully documenting evidence before taking action. A vindictive person acts on emotion. Mr. Henderson acted on evidence, and that evidence shows a pattern of manipulation and deception that directly impacted this child's well-being. After they left, Maya and I sat in the quiet kitchen, the afternoon sunlight streaming through windows that suddenly felt like they belonged to us again. Grandpa, Maya said softly, are they going to come back? Grandma will come visit sometimes, but Uncle Kevin won't be living here anymore. Good, she said simply. I like it better when it's just us. Me too, sweetheart, me too. 2 years later, I'm sitting on the same front porch swing where Maya first asked me why Uncle Kevin made Grandma laugh different, but everything else has changed in ways I never could have imagined. Maya is 8 now, and she's coloring in a new art book while I read the newspaper. The October air is crisp and clean, carrying the scent of the apple tree we planted last spring in the backyard. It's a Saturday morning, and we have nowhere to be except right here, together. Grandpa Ross, Maya says, not looking up from her elaborate drawing of what appears to be our house, surrounded by an impossible number of flowers. Do you remember when I was little and asked you about Uncle Kevin? I remember, sweetheart. You were very brave to tell me the truth. I wasn't trying to be brave, I was just confused. She carefully selects a purple crayon for what I think might be petunias. I'm glad I told you, though. Me too, baby. Me too. The divorce was finalized 8 months after that day in the kitchen with the mediator. Sarah got half the assets from our marriage, as was fair, but the house remained mine along with custody of Maya. The court had been particularly unimpressed with the recordings of Sarah discussing Maya as both a burden and a prize to be won. What I didn't expect was how quickly the rest of the truth would come out once people started looking closely at Sarah and Kevin's relationship. It turned out their affair had been the worst-kept secret in our small town. Sarah's sister knew. Kevin's ex-wife had suspected for months before their divorce. Even our neighbors had noticed Kevin's car in the driveway at odd hours, but had chosen to mind their own business rather than get involved in what they assumed was a family matter. The revelation that stung the most came from Tom, Maya's father, 3 weeks after the divorce papers were signed. He and Jennifer had worked through their problems and were ready to have Maya back home. But when they saw how settled and happy she was with me, they decided to let her choose. Dad, Tom had said during one of our weekly dinners, I have to ask you something and I want you to know there's no judgment behind it. Okay. Did you know? Before Maya said something, did you suspect anything? I'd thought about that question for weeks before he asked it. Honestly, I think part of me knew something was wrong. Sarah had been distant for months, maybe longer, but I convinced myself it was just a rough patch, something we'd work through. Why didn't you ever say anything to us about how bad things had gotten? Because I kept thinking I could fix it, that if I just tried harder, was more attentive, more understanding, things would go back to how they used to be. I'd looked at Maya, who was absorbed in building an elaborate fort with Jennifer's couch cushions. I didn't want to burden you and Jennifer with our problems when you were dealing with your own. Dad, you could never be a burden to us. We're family. The word family had taken on new meaning over the past 2 years. Maya's parents visited every other weekend now, sometimes staying for dinner, sometimes taking Maya for overnight trips. But her primary home remained with me, and the stability seemed to be exactly what she needed. Sarah's visits, supervised for the first 6 months, and then gradually becoming more normal, had settled into a routine of Saturday afternoons twice a month. She and Kevin had indeed gotten married, a small ceremony I learned about through Maya, who had not been invited. Grandma seems sadder now, Maya had observed after one of these visits. Even when she smiles, her eyes look tired. I'd noticed it too. Sarah's new marriage wasn't the fairy tale she'd imagined. Kevin, it turned out, was the kind of man who was exciting when he was forbidden, but considerably less charming when he was your everyday reality. Without the thrill of secrecy and the validation of stolen moments, their relationship had settled into something ordinary and, from what I could observe, increasingly strained. Sarah had lost weight, aged in a way that suggested stress rather than time. She was careful around Maya now, no longer the casual manipulator who had coached a 6-year-old into keeping secrets. The court-ordered counseling had apparently made an impact, though I suspected the real change came from seeing herself through Maya's eyes and not liking what she found there. Kevin rarely came to the visits anymore. When he did, he stayed in the car, and Maya didn't ask about him. She'd grown into a confident, happy child who spoke her mind clearly and didn't like people who made her feel quiet, as she still put it. The financial settlement had been more generous than I'd expected, partly because Sarah's lawyer had advised her that fighting me would likely result in more of those recordings becoming public record. I'd used some of the money to set up a college fund for Maya and invested the rest conservatively. At 51, I wasn't looking to take risks with my future security. My construction business had actually grown during the divorce proceedings. Word had gotten around about what Sarah and Kevin had done, and the community response had been overwhelmingly supportive. People who had known us for years made a point of recommending my services, and several of my competitors had referred clients to me when they were overbooked. Character matters in a small town, my friend Bill had told me over beers one evening. People watched how you handled yourself during all that mess, and they liked what they saw. What they saw was a man who had gathered evidence instead of acting on emotion, who had protected a child instead of using her as a weapon, who had fought for what was right instead of what was easy. I wasn't sure I deserved their good opinion, but I was grateful for it. The loneliness had been harder to handle than the financial or legal aspects of the divorce. 15 years of marriage leaves a lot of empty spaces in your daily routine. I'd had to learn how to cook for 2 instead of 3, how to make decisions without consulting someone else, how to fill the quiet hours after Maya went to bed, but gradually those empty spaces had filled with different things. Maya and I developed our own routines, our own traditions. Saturday morning pancakes became elaborate productions where we tried new recipes and made increasingly ridiculous shapes. Sunday afternoons were for projects, building things together in the garage or working in the garden Maya had claimed as her special responsibility. Grandpa, Maya says now, interrupting my memories, Mrs. Patterson called this morning while you were in the shower. Mrs. Patterson. Linda, the mediator who had become a family friend over the past 2 years, partly because Maya had taken such a liking to her no-nonsense approach to problems. What did she want, sweetheart? She wanted to know if we're still coming to her daughter's wedding next month. I told her yes, and that I can't wait to wear my new dress. The dress in question is hanging in Maya's closet, a soft blue color she picked out herself for the occasion. It's the first time she'll be attending a wedding, and she's been practicing her wedding behavior for weeks, which apparently involves sitting very still and not talking during the ceremony. She also said to tell you that Uncle Kevin got arrested. I nearly dropped my newspaper. What? She said he got arrested for stealing money from his job. She said you'd want to know because it might affect the divorce papers somehow. I stare at my granddaughter, who has delivered this bombshell with the same casual tone she uses to announce that we're out of orange juice. Did she say anything else? She said Grandma Sarah might need to get a new lawyer because her current lawyer is also in trouble for helping Uncle Kevin hide the money he stole. The implications hit me like a freight train. If Kevin had been embezzling funds during his relationship with Sarah, and if Sarah's divorce lawyer had been complicit in hiding assets, then the financial settlement I'd agreed to might be subject to revision. More importantly, it meant Sarah had unknowingly married a criminal. Maya, did Mrs. Patterson say we should call her back? She said she'd call again tonight after you had time to think about it. She said not to worry because it's good news for us. Good news for us, maybe, but potentially devastating news for Sarah. Whatever else had happened between us, I couldn't feel satisfaction at the thought of her discovering that the man she'd destroyed our marriage for was a thief who had dragged her into his criminal activities. Grandpa, you look worried. Is this bad news? I set down my newspaper and really looked at Maya, this remarkable little girl who had grown from a confused 6-year-old keeping painful secrets into a confident 8-year-old who faced difficult truths with remarkable equanimity. "It's complicated news, sweetheart. It might be good for us, but it's probably very bad for Grandma Sarah." Maya considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important matters. "Even though Grandma Sarah hurt your feelings, you don't want bad things to happen to her. That's right, just because someone hurts you doesn't mean you should want them to suffer. Is that why you still talk nice to her when she visits, even though she was mean to you?" "Partly, but mostly because she's your grandmother, and I want you to be able to love her without feeling like you have to choose sides." Maya nodded as if this made perfect sense. "I think you're a good grandpa, Grandpa Ross. I think you're a pretty amazing granddaughter, Maya." As the afternoon sun slanted across our front porch, painting everything in golden light, I realized that despite everything we'd been through, despite all the pain and betrayal and upheaval, I was exactly where I belonged. The house was quieter now, but it was an honest quiet, not the silence of secrets and pretense. Maya went back to her coloring, humming a song she'd learned at school, and I picked up my newspaper again. Whatever news Linda Patterson had to share tonight, whatever complications Kevin's arrest might create, we'd handle them the same way we'd handled everything else. Together, honestly, and with the kind of love that doesn't require anyone to lie or keep secrets or pretend to be someone they're not. The swing creaked gently in the October breeze, and for the first time in years I felt truly at peace.